They thought they could break me by forcing me to serve at their engagement party. My ex-husband's new fiancée wanted to watch me fall. But when I walked in carrying our daughter they thought was dead, the billionaire who abandoned us both dropped to his knees and wept. If you believe in karma and second chances, smash that like button right now. This story will leave you speechless. And don't forget to subscribe, because you won't want to miss what happens next. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered in cream-colored paper, so expensive I could practically smell the arrogance seeping through my mailbox. My hands trembled as I read the elegant script. Vincent and Isabella cordially request your catering services for their engagement celebration. Not your presence, your services. Like I was just another vendor they could hire and dismiss. 3 years. 3 years since Vincent Blackwood, the man I thought would be my forever, chose his family's approval over our marriage. 3 years since he looked me in the eye and said, "Maybe this is for the best, Camille. We were never meant to be." Those words still echo in my chest like a wound that refuses to heal. I remember our last night together in that mansion. The same mansion where they now wanted me to serve champagne and smile while they celebrated their new beginning. I had just lost our baby, a devastating miscarriage at 5 months that nearly killed me both physically and emotionally. Instead of holding me while I grieved, Vincent stood by his mother's bedside as she whispered poison in his ear. "She's not strong enough for this family, Vincent," Margaret Blackwood had said, her voice dripping with disdain. "A woman who can't even carry a child to term has no place in our bloodline." And Vincent, the man who once promised to protect me from the world, nodded and walked away from everything we'd built together. The divorce papers came a week later. No conversation, no attempt to fight for us, just legal documents that reduced our love to property divisions and financial settlements. I left with nothing but my dignity and a broken heart, while he kept the mansion, the business empire, and his mother's approval. Building my catering company from scratch nearly broke me. 18-hour days, maxed out credit cards, sleeping on my sister Denise's couch because I couldn't afford rent. But every rejection, every late payment, every night I cried myself to sleep only made me more determined. They wanted me to disappear, to fade into nothing. Instead, I built something beautiful from the ashes of what they destroyed. When I called Denise about the invitation, she practically screamed through the phone. "Are you insane? They're trying to humiliate you, Camille. This is Margaret's sick idea of entertainment. Watching you serve the woman who took your place." She wasn't wrong. I could picture Isabella's satisfied smile, the way she'd probably rehearsed cutting remarks to make me feel small. Isabella Chen, 25, fresh out of Harvard Business School, with porcelain skin, and the kind of pedigree that made Margaret Blackwood practically purr with approval. Everything I apparently wasn't. "Don't go," Denise begged. "You've built a good life. Don't let them drag you backward." But as I sat there holding that invitation, something fierce and unbreakable stirred in my chest. They thought they knew me. They thought they'd broken me completely, that I was still that heartbroken woman who'd left their world with her tail between her legs. They had no idea what I'd survived, what I'd built, what I'd been protecting all this time. "I'm going," I told Denise quietly. "Why would you do that to yourself?" I looked at the invitation again, seeing not just an attempt to humiliate me, but an opportunity they'd unknowingly handed me. An opportunity to show them exactly who Camille Rivers had become. More importantly, an opportunity to reveal the truth they never bothered to discover. The truth that would change everything. "Because," I said, my voice steady with a certainty that surprised even me, "they have no idea what's coming for them. Some storms announce themselves with thunder and lightning. Others arrive quietly, carried in the hands of a woman who refused to stay broken." I was about to become the latter. Walking up that marble driveway felt like traveling through time. Every step bringing back memories I'd spent 3 years trying to bury. The same fountain where Vincent once surprised me with roses. The same oak doors where we'd kissed goodbye every morning. Now it all belonged to someone else, decorated with white roses and gold ribbons for their perfect new beginning. Isabella opened the door herself, probably wanting the pleasure of seeing my face. When I realized what they'd orchestrated, she looked flawless in her champagne-colored dress, every blonde hair perfectly in place, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, good," she said, not even pretending to be polite. "The help is here. Vincent told me you used to live here. How nostalgic this must be for you." Her eyes sparkled with malicious delight. "Try not to embarrass yourself tonight. These people have standards." I smiled back, my voice steady as honey. "Don't worry about me, Isabella. I'm exactly where I need to be." The mansion was full of familiar faces, Vincent's business partners, society wives who used to pretend to like me, people who'd watched our marriage crumble like it was dinner theater. They looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity, whispering behind champagne glasses about how far the mighty had fallen. Margaret Blackwood made her entrance like a queen surveying her kingdom. She spotted me immediately, her lips curving into that cold smile I remembered so well. "Everyone," she announced loudly, "I'd like you to meet our caterer for the evening. This is Camille, Vincent's first mistake." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. But we believe in giving people second chances, don't we? Even when they've proven they're not quite suitable for our world. Every word was designed to cut, to remind me of my place. But something strange happened as I watched their performance. Instead of feeling small, I felt powerful. They were working so hard to diminish me, which meant they were still threatened by what I represented. Vincent finally appeared, and for a moment, time stopped. He looked older, wearier, like success hadn't brought him the peace he'd expected. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw something flicker there, regret, maybe even longing. He approached carefully, like I was a wounded animal that might bolt. "Camille," he said quietly, "I never wanted it to end like this, but you let it happen anyway," I replied, arranging canapes with steady hands. "That's what matters, isn't it? What we choose to do when it counts. Not a day goes by that I don't regret." "Don't." I turned to face him fully. "Don't you dare try to rewrite history now. You made your choice, Vincent. Live with it." The evening continued its cruel theater. Isabella deliberately knocked over a glass of red wine, watching it splash across my white apron. "Oops," she giggled. "Clean that up, will you?" The guests pretended not to notice, but I caught their sideways glances, their barely concealed smirks. Then came the moment designed to destroy me completely. Isabella clinked her glass, calling for attention. "We have wonderful news to share," she beamed, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Vincent and I are expecting our first child." The room exploded in congratulations. Margaret actually clapped her hands together like a delighted child. "Finally," she declared loudly, "a grandchild worthy of the Blackwood name." My hands stilled on the serving tray. The words hit exactly where they were meant to, the deepest wound, the loss that had started my downfall. But instead of crumbling, I felt something else entirely. A strange calm settled over me as my phone buzzed in my pocket. The text message was simple. "We're outside. Is it time?" I looked around the room at all these people celebrating, at Vincent trying to look happy, while his eyes kept finding mine, at Isabella basking in her moment of triumph. They had no idea that everything was about to change. "Yes," I texted back, my fingers steady. "Bring her in." The text message felt like a lifeline in that suffocating room, full of fake smiles and calculated cruelty. My heart hammered against my ribs as I excused myself from the kitchen, telling the other staff that I needed fresh air. But this wasn't about air. This was about truth. This was about the moment I'd been preparing for since the day I walked away from this house. Outside, a familiar car sat in the circular driveway. Through the tinted windows, I could see my sister Denise in the passenger seat, and in the back, secured safely in her car seat, was the most beautiful sight in the world. My daughter, our daughter, the child Vincent never knew survived. I opened the car door with trembling hands. "Hey, baby girl," I whispered, unbuckling Luna from her seat. She looked up at me with those unmistakable Blackwood eyes. the same deep brown that Vincent inherited from his father, the same eyes that once looked at me with love instead of regret. Luna wrapped her tiny arms around my neck, her curls bouncing as she settled against my shoulder. She was wearing the little white dress I'd bought for this moment, the moment when her existence would shatter every assumption, every cruel word, every piece of the narrative they'd built about me. "Mama," she said in her sweet 2-year-old voice, and those simple syllables gave me strength I didn't know I still possessed. Denise squeezed my hand through the car window. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice thick with worry. "More sure than I've ever been about anything," I replied, straightening my shoulders. It's time they knew what really happened that night. Walking back toward those imposing doors, I felt like I was carrying more than my daughter. I was carrying the weight of every lie they'd told about me, every assumption they'd made about my worth, every cruel word designed to break me. Luna babbled happily against my neck, completely unaware that she was about to change everything. The party was in full swing when I stepped back inside. Isabella was holding court near the fireplace, one hand protectively over her stomach as she described nursery plans to an adoring audience. Vincent stood beside her, playing the part of the devoted father-to-be, but I could see the hollowness in his smile. Margaret was regaling a group of women with stories about appropriate bloodlines and the importance of choosing the right mother for one's heirs. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Nobody noticed me at first. I was just the help, returning to her duties. But as I moved through the crowd, Luna's presence began to register. Conversations slowed, heads turned. The resemblance was unmistakable. She had Vincent's eyes, his mother's stubborn chin, the distinctive blackwood nose that appeared in every family portrait lining the walls. I walked deliberately toward the center of the room, each step measured and purposeful. This was my moment, not for revenge, not for cruelty, but for truth, for justice, for the recognition that I had carried and protected and raised the most precious thing in the world, while they wrote me off as worthless. Vincent saw us first. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor in a crystalline explosion that cut through the party chatter like a gunshot. The color drained from his face so completely I thought he might collapse. He whispered, his voice barely audible over the sudden silence that had fallen over the room. "That's impossible. The baby died." Every eye in the room was on us now, on me, standing tall with my daughter in my arms, and on Luna, who looked around at all the strangers with curious, unafraid eyes. The same eyes as her father, the same eyes that were now filling with tears of shock and disbelief. "No, Vincent," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent room. "She didn't die. I saved her." The silence that followed my words was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop in that grand ballroom as every single person processed what they were seeing. Luna, oblivious to the storm she'd just created, played with my necklace and babbled happily, her little voice the only sound in a room full of frozen faces. Vincent took a shaky step forward, his hands reaching out instinctively before dropping to his sides. "I don't understand," he whispered, his voice breaking. "The doctors said, after the miscarriage, they said, there was no miscarriage, Vincent." My voice remained steady, even as my heart raced. "I went into premature labor the night you signed those divorce papers, 28 weeks. While you were celebrating your freedom, I was fighting for our daughter's life in the NICU." His legs gave out. Vincent Blackwood, the man who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, collapsed into the nearest chair like a broken puppet. "My daughter," he breathed, tears streaming down his face. "I have a daughter." Luna looked at him with those curious brown eyes, and then buried her face in my shoulder, suddenly shy around all the strangers. "Mama," she said softly, and that single word shattered whatever was left of Vincent's composure. "She's beautiful," he sobbed. "She's so beautiful. I've missed everything. Her first steps, her first words, His voice broke completely. Margaret stood frozen in place, her face a mask of horror and calculation. I could practically see her mind racing. Inheritance laws, family succession, everything she thought she'd controlled, spinning out of her grasp. "This changes everything," she whispered. Isabella's face had turned an ugly shade of red. "This wasn't part of the plan," she shrieked, her composed facade cracking like cheap paint. "Vincent, you said she was out of your life forever." But Vincent wasn't listening to Isabella anymore. His entire world had narrowed to the little girl in my arms, the child he never knew existed, the daughter he'd unknowingly abandoned. "Please," he begged, struggling to his feet. "Please, Camille, let me hold her. Let me be her father." The room full of society elite who'd spent the evening treating me like hired help now looked at me with something approaching awe. Here I stood, the woman they'd dismissed as unworthy, holding the true heir to the Blackwood fortune. The woman who'd endured their cruelty while protecting the most precious secret of all. "Her name is Luna," I said quietly, gently stroking my daughter's hair. "She spent 4 months in the NICU. I held her hand through every surgery, every setback, every night when the doctors weren't sure she'd make it. I sold everything I had to pay for her care. I built my business around her nap schedule. I've been her whole world, Vincent, because you chose not to be." Margaret suddenly sprang into action, her survival instincts kicking in. "Camille, darling," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Surely we can work something out. Luna belongs with her family, with her inheritance." "No," my voice cut through her manipulation like a blade. "Luna doesn't need your money or your acceptance. She has something far more valuable, a mother who never gave up on her." Isabella threw her engagement ring at Vincent's feet, the diamonds skittering across the marble. "I won't be part of this circus," she screamed, before storming out, her perfect future crumbling around her. Vincent stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. "What can I do? How can I make this right?" I looked at this broken man who'd once been my everything, then at my daughter who deserved better than the pain that had defined my past. "That's not for me to decide anymore, Vincent. That's Luna's choice to make, when she's old enough to understand what it means." I turned toward the door, Luna secure in my arms. "Some things can't be bought back, Margaret," I said over my shoulder. "Love and time are 2 of them." Walking away from that house, for the second time in my life, felt like victory. Did that give you chills? Because I'm still getting goosebumps thinking about that moment when everything changed. The look on Vincent's face, the silence in that room, the power of a truth that couldn't be hidden anymore. That's the kind of karma that restores your faith in justice. This story proves that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't plotting or scheming. It's simply surviving, thriving, and protecting what matters most. Camille didn't need to destroy anyone. She just needed to show up with the truth, and the truth destroyed their lies all by itself. If this story moved you, if it made you believe in the power of a mother's love, and the reality that what goes around truly comes around, smash that like button and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more incredible stories of people who refuse to stay broken. What would you have done in Camille's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one.